Attorney Robert Sussman, the legal and legislative journey we've been on to implement the Alan Reinstein Ban Asbestos Act.
It's a pleasure to be here, and a particular pleasure to talk about the journey that I've been on with Linda and many others over the last 7 years, a journey that has presented many legal challenges, many political challenges, but has also been a journey that's been very rewarding and fulfilling. We're in a unique era on asbestos. It's not quite the same as the 1980s, but nonetheless, it is an era where asbestos is front and center in the Congress, front and center with EPA, front and center with the courts, and we're seeing a high level of activity across a number of different fronts, and we have a truly historic opportunity to achieve some breakthrough successes if we do our work and if the gods reward us, and most importantly, if the people in a position of influence in the Congress and in our government step up and acknowledge the critical public health importance of the asbestos issue. So much of the activity over the last 7 years has really been driven by ADAO, and Linda deserves immense credit for that. She has stepped up and responded to every challenge that has been presented. She's been ingenious and innovative and most importantly, resolute, and that has paid off for us over this period in a big way. So let me turn to EPA and emphasize at the start that what has created the new era of activity that we're in is the passage of the 2016 amendments to the Toxic Substances Control Act, which many of us call the Lautenberg Act, and it's opened up a new regulatory front on asbestos by giving EPA a second chance to do what it tried to do in 1989, which is to put in place a comprehensive asbestos ban, and unfortunately failed to do because of a court decision setting aside its earlier rule on TSCA. So EPA has been given an opportunity to remake history and accomplish now what it didn't accomplish in 1989. And over that 7-year period, if you look at the chronology of actions that have occurred, EPA picked asbestos for its first set of chemical risk evaluations under TSCA in 2016. It completed its Part 1 risk evaluation for current uses of chrysotile asbestos in 2020. It initiated a Part 2 evaluation to address legacy asbestos exposure in 2021. And then in 2022, EPA proposed a Part 1 ban building on the risk evaluation to eliminate ongoing uses of chrysotile asbestos. EPA also finalized in 2023 a reporting rule under TSCA, which would compel users and importers of asbestos to report information on their activities to EPA. So EPA's progress, while welcome, has not occurred without some false starts and disappointments. EPA is needed to be pushed into doing things under the law that many of us would say are required and obvious. And the jury is still out on the ultimate resolution of EPA's activities. We don't know whether EPA will get to the finish line, a ban of chrysotile asbestos. We don't know what that rule will say. We don't know whether EPA will effectively address and evaluate the risks of legacy asbestos. That's a huge job. Is EPA up to the job? We don't know. And EPA also will receive quite a bit of information under the asbestos reporting rule, but what it will do with that information, whether it will make it available to the public, whether the information will identify priorities for further EPA action as it goes down the road, that is an area of uncertainty. We don't know how it's going to play out. So our focus has really been to use advocacy and legal action to hold EPA's feet to the fire, often in the face of equivocation and reluctance by the agency. And so we were intimately involved in successfully suing EPA and, as Chris said before, obtaining a landmark court decision in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals holding that EPA had an obligation under TSCA to evaluate the risks of legacy asbestos. We worked with leading scientists to present a hard-hitting critique of the Part 1 risk evaluation. We obtained a breakthrough court decision directing EPA to require mandatory reporting on asbestos under TSCA. We filed and settled a suit against EPA over the flaws in the Part 1 evaluation. And we filed and settled the suit to require a legally enforceable deadline for completing the legacy evaluation. And that deadline is December 1, 2024, which is coming right up in the world of bureaucracy and regulation. So, I want to focus on the Phase 1 rule and where it's headed, because this is, I think, the number one priority for everybody right now. This is a rule that would ban asbestos diaphragms in the chlor-alkali industry in 2 years. It would ban all other chrysotile uses of asbestos in 1 year. EPA is in the final stage of the rulemaking process. It is indicated that its final rule should be out in January of 2024. That's just a few months from now. And I think it's also fair to say that this has been a remarkably and unexpectedly contentious and difficult rulemaking. And the reason for that is intense industry opposition. One might have hoped that industry agreed that now is the time to eliminate asbestos and would step up to get the job done. But that is not what has happened, and we have seen in all court press by the American Chemistry Council and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to stop this rule in its tracks. And the theme that we've heard again and again from the industry is that, gee, you know, if you require the replacement of asbestos diaphragms in all these plants, then supplies of chlorine and caustic soda are going to go way down, and that's going to have a ripple effect through the economy. One of the effects will be shortages of chlorine for drinking water treatment, which would, of course, be a horrible thing because we're all concerned about drinking water safety. And so this has been a bumpy path, and it will probably stay a bumpy path. And so the question, certainly the question on the minds of lawyers, but also everybody else is, well, if EPA does go ahead with this ban, is it going to be litigated? And I would have to say right now the odds of litigation are pretty high. It is virtually inevitable. And that's one reason why ADAO and others are working so hard for legislation, because legislation, as everybody knows, cannot be litigated. Congress issues an edict, and it's the law of the land, and people need to comply. And therefore, legislation will lock in a comprehensive asbestos ban that cannot be challenged in court and will produce immediate results. We've heard from Mike Meehan of Olin, and Olin has been, I think, a real breath of fresh air on this issue. It's stepped forward to say, both from the standpoint of our business and from the standpoint of public health and regulation, asbestos diaphragms need to go, and having them in the fight has really, I think, been a great asset to ADAO. I'm going to finish with a quick comment on legacy. We're all preoccupied with the Part 1 chrysotile asbestos ban, but right over the horizon is the EPA risk evaluation on legacy exposure to asbestos. And this is the first time in over 40 years that there's been a comprehensive governmental look at legacy asbestos. And so there's a lot that we need to know that we don't know. There's a lot that we may have known 40 years ago, but it's not accurate anymore. And so this is a unique opportunity to update our understanding of legacy asbestos and to examine and define the potential risks. I am very concerned that EPA is not going to be up to the complexity and the importance of this task. And once we finish with Part 1, I think a priority really needs to be to make sure that this legacy evaluation is rigorous, transparent, peer-reviewed, and reflects the state of knowledge and the science. So I think that's going to be a big job for everyone. Thank you.